The suspension of Ezekiel Elliott and the nagging hamstring injury suffered by Sean Lee hung over the Dallas Cowboys like a pesky storm cloud which wouldn't go away, which stunted their growth and potential for this past season. Is Jason Garett the right man to lead the train back on the proverbial track and take the Cowboys back to the top of the standings? Meanwhile, in Houston, America's fourth largest city, a debilitating ACL injury derailed the season of rookie phenom quarterback Deshaun Watson. Despite the setback, however, the future for Bill O'Brien and the Texans appears brighter than the sun on its hottest day. I wanted a status update on the two teams in the NFL which represent the Lone Star State, and for that I enlisted the help of Kevin John, a sports anchor and reporter for KYTX CBS 19 in Tyler, Texas, who joined me on Wednesday to engage in a Texas two-step. So first of all, Kevin, we want to take the time and welcome you to the Two Man Advantage podcast, and we're excited to talk some Cowboys football with you this afternoon.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. Definitely excited to be here, and there's a lot to talk about.
There's no doubt about that. Now, when you look and try to encapsulate the Cowboys season, certainly two things for me stand out: the injury to Sean Lee, the nagging hamstring injury, and the suspension of Ezekiel Elliott. So can you just give me your overall thoughts on the season and how those two things in particular impacted it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first things first, you got to look, coming into the season, the Cowboys were favored to win the NFC East and to make another deep run in the playoffs, especially coming off a 13-3 season last year in which they looked outstanding. They looked incredible on both sides of the ball. Dak Prescott, I think he surpassed everybody's expectations as a rookie. So I think part of the problem coming into this season was that the Cowboys set the bar so high in 2016. So, obviously, unless you go 13-3 this year and clinch the number one seed in the NFC, if you do anything less than that, people will view the season as a failure. And unfortunately, that's what it was. You already pointed to it earlier. Ezekiel Elliott, that whole offseason, that saga, that was just atrocious to the Cowboys on so many different angles. That was atrocious to the culture of the team. That was atrocious to the camaraderie. And that was atrocious to the game planning. You didn't know which week you were going to have him, which week he was going to be off. He was in and out of court. So many things going on. So when you have distractions like that off the field, that plays on the field. And we saw that. So I guess, before we get into that, just to kind of answer your question, I think this season, they went 9-7. To pretty much any other football squad, especially the Browns, 9-7 is considered a great season. But because of all the expectations the Cowboys had this year, 9-7 was seen as a failure, and ultimately I look at their season as a failure because they didn't accomplish what they set out to do.
As currently constituted, do you think the Cowboys have enough pieces to win it all and bring a championship to America's team?
Absolutely. I feel that the Cowboys had the pedigree, the makeup to make a deep run in the playoffs, if not make it to the Super Bowl this year, especially coming off what they did last season. Had Aaron Rodgers not pulled off some miraculous throw, that 29-yard throw, whatever it was, to set up the field goal for Crosby to defeat them last year in the divisional round, they could have made a run last year, even though the Falcons were a bad team last year. They were incredible. But the fact of the matter is this. They have the makeup. They have the pieces. This year, I feel what happened was a lot of things were exploited. Dak Prescott, he had such a great rookie campaign because teams didn't know how to game plan for him. Nobody knew it. We saw him at Mississippi State. We saw him at the Combine. We're aware of what he can do. We even got a lot of him in the preseason. But still, coaches game, they did not know how to contain him. So he had that kind of year. You got to realize this year, people already had a year of film on Dak Prescott. So things were going to be a little bit more difficult for him, and he had to prove that his freshman year, his rookie season was not just a fluke. So I guess to answer your question, I absolutely believe that they had the makeup to, to make a deep run, but there were just so many things that went wrong this year that just cannot happen if they want to be a championship caliber team.
Now, when you look at head coach Jason Garett, obviously he's got a special relationship, sort of a kinship with owner Jerry Jones, and it was asked about Garrett's future with the team at the Senior Bowl, and he said that he's not on his hot seat. So can you give me your overall assessment on head coach Jason Garett and where you think there is a need for improvement there?
Yeah, sure. I mean, first of all, I don't think Jason Garett should be put on the hot seat. Part of the blame is him. I'm not exonerating him from everything. But you have to realize in the Cowboys organization, there's a certain culture. There is a certain vibe. There's a certain camaraderie in that locker room, in that Cowboys conglomerate that's not like any other NFL team. And I think it takes a special person or specifically coach to be able to come in and understand that culture and then be able to coach in that culture. And I think Jason Garett is one of those few individuals. You can't just fire Jason Garett to bring any other coach into that Cowboys culture and expect them to understand the way that things go, to expect them to understand the scrutiny, the pedestalization that comes with being America's team. I don't even know if that's a word. But I feel that Coach Garett understands that. He understands that culture. He understands what it's like to coach a team that wears a star on their helmet. So I feel that Jason Garett was blindsided by a lot. Well, I shouldn't say blindsided because we all knew that Ezekiel Elliott saga was inevitable. But I just feel there was a lot of things that happened this season that weren't specifically Jason Garrett's fault. But as the coach, you have to prepare your guys week in and week out, regardless of who's going to be there. We saw that with the Eagles. They had a lot of injuries. They had a lot of things that went on, but that organization is going to be playing for a Super Bowl title next Sunday. So I do feel that the coach does have some form of blame, but I still think that Garett is still the man there.
And when we look at the impact of Elliott's suspension, obviously it had an effect on Prescott. It wasn't nearly as effective as it was in his first year with him there. Now, can you tell me what you think is the trajectory of Prescott, and how much did Elliott's absence hurt his progression for the Cowboys?
Well, Elliott's absence was like a knife going through him. I mean, as we saw last year, that offense ran through Ezekiel Elliott. And as with any NFL team, it's traditional. You have a solid run game. You can do a lot of things out of it. A lot of, whether it's play actions. When you have a solid run game, that opens up the field and opens up everything for you want to do. So any great offensive team starts off with a solid run game. And we saw Dak struggled this year without that. So, I guess to answer your question, yeah, it was hard for Dak not to have number 21 in the backfield there because that put a lot more responsibility on him. And, you kind of asked about Dak's trajectory. I kind of think the jury is still out with Dak. I mean, we kind of don't know who this guy is. We saw the 13-3 year he had as a rookie. It was sensational. I mean, statistically, I think it was one of the best rookie seasons we've ever seen as a quarterback. I mean, his touchdown to intercept, what was he, like 22, 23 touchdowns, 4 interceptions or something? I don't have the stats in front of me, but he had a really, really solid rookie campaign. This year was a lot different. A lot of that is Ezekiel Elliott, but I also feel that we got to see who Dak is more this year. Are you the man that can lead a team with your right arm? Are you the man that we can put in elite category with Breeze, with Brady, with Ryan, with Roethlisberger, quarterbacks you can throw out their game solely with your arm? Can you do that? I don't know if we could say Dak is in that elite stage. I don't even know if he's second tier yet. He struggled a lot this year. He had some really bad games, especially that 3-game stretch. Ezekiel's first 3 games out, I believe, when he had that 3-game stretch where he was just atrocious. I mean, they couldn't score. They didn't score more than, I think it was 9 points in all 3 of the first 3 games Ezekiel was out. It was just bad. So to answer your question, I think that Dak Prescott has a bright upside. I mean, at the end of the day, he's still young. This was just a sophomore season. He's still young. But when you see what people like Carson Wentz are doing their sophomore year, you want to make sure that Dak is trending in the right area. You don't want to, you don't want to go backwards. You want to go forward. So next year will be a really big year for Dak to see what he's really made of. But as of now, the jury is still out.
Now, if you were shopping for the groceries this offseason for the Cowboys, what would be your top 3 priorities to improve the team?
Well, first things first, you got to look at their defense. And with any team, it starts, offensively starts with a solid run game. To win championships, you got to start with a solid, great defense. I mean, that just comes down to it. Cowboys were ranked 25th this year in total defense as far as yards per game. That's passing, rushing. And they just were not that defensive threat. Now, DeMarcus Lawrence was outstanding. And if I'm the Cowboys, the first thing I'm looking to do is looking at DeMarcus Lawrence and saying, how can we get a contract done this offseason? He's an elite pass rusher. You saw what he did this year, and I feel that he is the go-to on bringing back. Now, also you got to look at the Cowboys receiving corps. Dez Bryant, I love the guy, but you see him kind of becoming that locker room distraction. Throw me the ball. Well, Dez, when they throw you the ball, you got to catch the ball. I mean, the guy had brick hands this season. So, it's going to be interesting what they're going to do with him. I don't know if Dez is the priority on bringing back, but they do need a solid receiving corps. I mean, that just goes down to it. Terrence Williams is somebody that can't be trusted. Really, Bryce Butler is really the only person that can be trusted as far as just his versatility and what he brings, and he's a solid, solid route runner. Cole Beasley is always going to be Cole Beasley, but I think they need to strengthen the receiving corps. Jason Witten, we all know he's at the end of the road. I think they need to bring another tight end there, to have more of a tight end threat or something going on. But in addition to that, I mean, get Lawrence. Get some solid receiving corps, and then also the O-line. The O-line struggled this year. Now, we know that Tyron Smith was out for a period of time. That hurt them, but the O-line was a little more suspect this year than they were last year. So, I don't know if maybe you want to go out and get a tackle, what have you, but there are, a lot of pieces to fix up there.
And before we move on to the Texans, I'm just curious to know what your thoughts were on Tony Romo's first year as a broadcaster.
That boy, Tony Romo, man, as Stuart, he is cool as the other side of the pillow when he's in the booth. I mean, Tony, I'm one of those people to the color analysts and commentators when I watch the football game because I'm just so fixated within the football game. Sometimes I'll listen just to kind of hear when they throw in random stats, but Tony was like the one commentator, like I could turn the TV up and be in another room and still get a very colorful, eloquent picture of what's going on the TV. I think Tony knocked it out the park, and I look forward to continue listening to his broadcast. I mean, him in the booth is a match made in heaven. I'll say that much. I mean, that was a perfect marriage, and I'm sure there's no divorce coming in that anytime soon. So I look forward to hearing more of Tony Romo. That boy bad in the booth.
Hey, when you get those TV jobs, they're hard to give up, right? So you got to hold on to them as long as you have them, right?
I'll tell you this: he definitely doesn't have to worry about getting any concussions in the booth. That's for sure.
Well, he had enough of those with the Cowboys.
Yeah, amen to that.
So when we look at the other team in Texas, the Texans have obviously had a very busy offseason already with the appointment of a new general manager because of Rick Smith's personal situation, the contract extension with head coach Bill O'Brien, and J.J. Watt's hurt again. So could you just give me a thumbnail on where you think the other team in Texas is as they enter the offseason?
Well, the thing is, Dak Prescott is not the only bright QB in Texas that wears the number 4. There's another
No,
man by the name of Deshaun Watson, who, by golly, could be the NFL MVP within the next couple of years.
he could
That
be
brother,
better than Dak Prescott.
absolutely. Actually, I'll go out and say it now. I think Deshaun Watson is better than Dak Prescott. I know it's a bold statement, especially because we only got to see a little bit of Deshaun this season before he went down with the season in the injury. But if I'm Bill O'Brien, if I'm anybody in the Texans organization, I'm looking at Mr. Watson like we have our quarterback of the future, and we will be a competitor down the stretch, especially in a semi-weak AFC South. So I'm looking at the Texans. I'm looking at Deshaun Watson. I'm looking at that trajectory. I'm looking at people like J.J. Watt coming back. I'm looking at a healthy and Jadeveon Clowney. I'm looking at an all-pro receiver like DeAndre Hopkins. And I'm looking at this team like they can do some damage within the next few years, if not next year, with all the pieces being there. So I'm glad that they give Bill O'Brien the extension because he's been with that team the last couple of years. And the team has always been solid the last few years defensively. Last year, 2016, they led the league in defense. Granted, they had a Brock Osweiler. They had a quarterback incompetency situation going on. But that's always been a great team. They just had inconsistent quarterback play. So you get a healthy Deshaun Watson there. Them Texans, boy, watch out.
Do you think Watt will stay healthy for a full year?
I don't know, man. Watt, he's been one thing after another with him. And not just last year, but the last few seasons. I mean, I don't know how many games he's played in the last 2 years, but it's been a little scary. So, you have a 3-time defensive player of the year that is the heart and soul, or 4-time, I don't know, heart and soul of that team. I don't want to say that defense rests on his shoulders, but you want somebody like that out there snap after snap. And if J.J. Watt cannot get you the production that you're looking for, that's a huge issue. But the Texans are still a great team regardless. I mean, you have Jadeveon Clowney on one side, who's an elite pass rusher, and a solid secondary. That's not to say that they can't do anything without Watt. I think they can still be a playoff team without him. They've done that before. But you need number 99 out there to really be the full potential, to live up to the full potential that you guys are as a team.
And a healthy quarterback, too.
Yes. I mean, Tom Savage, respect the dude, but he's not the future. He's someone that can win you a few games. He's someone that can maybe keep the ship afloat, but he's not Deshaun Watson.
No. So when we look, my final 2 questions for you have to do with this upcoming offseason. What coaching hire left you the most surprised, most intrigued, and the one that was leaving you scratching your head the most?
Well, I mean, if we just go back to this last season, I think the best new head coach change, Sean McVay with the Los Angeles Rams. I mean, you talk about somebody that went in there and completely changed the culture of that team. The Rams were a laughing stock when Fisher was the head coach. You bring somebody like Sean McVay in there, whoo, that man turned that organization around and then some. So, I think of this past season, one of the biggest head coaching applauds would be Sean McVay and the Rams. I mean, they're now a contender in a very competitive NFC West. Coaching changes scratching my head. I would say Ben McAdoo. I mean, I think this was a guy that should have been gone a long time ago in the Giants. I mean, I don't know what McAdoo ever brought to the Giants. The fact that he lasted as long as he did there is, surprising, is head scratching to me. They finally got rid of him. I think it was just, it was just too late. But that Giants, right. And granted, Odell Beckham went down. Granted, Brandon Marshall went down. He wasn't Brandon. They had a lot of injuries to the receiving corps. But, yeah, Ben McAdoo was somebody that should have been X a long time ago. As far as new head coaches, I look at somebody like Patricia, the D coordinator of the Patriots. I think he's going to be a phenomenal head coach. I just look at Cleveland. And I don't know what can be done in Cleveland to turn that situation around.
Cleveland is where coaches go to die, right?
Cleveland's where coaches go to die, where quarterbacks go to die, where fans go to die. I don't know anyone surviving in Cleveland other than LeBron James. So,
until the end of the year when it goes to the Lakers. But anyway.
Exactly. So, I just don't know what can be done in Cleveland, but shoot. Whatever
they have to find a quarterback.
That's true. So if I'm Sam Darnold or Josh Allen or Josh Reynolds, anybody, I'm like, Cleveland, stay away.
Yeah, my final question for you has to do with which offseason headlines will you be keeping the closest eye on this offseason?
Honestly, Kirk Cousins. Now that Washington acquired Alex Smith, shakes up the NFC East. So Kirk Cousins is going to be an interesting thing. Where's he going to end up at? Is it going to be Denver? Is it going to be the Bills? Is it going to be the Jaguars? Any quarterback needy team. But interesting because he can potentially become the highest paid player next year. So that's going to be really interesting to see what happens. As pertaining to the Cowboys, Des Bryant, what ends up going on with him. I mean, I know he has a year or two, I think, left on his contract, whatever it is, but what they're going to end up doing with him is interesting. Also, I'm looking at the 49ers, and I'm looking at that bad man by the name of Jimmy Garoppolo that came in there, and just interesting what he's going to add to them going into this season. And then also, another interesting offseason thing, will Colin Kaepernick have a job in 2018?
Well, I can answer that question for you.
It seems now he's pretty much content committing his life to activism, and I respect that so much about that, brother. Anytime you sacrifice anything to push a movement, there's nothing but commendable and admiration that goes to that. So, it'll be interesting to see if he gets picked up. But those are some of the interesting things I'm looking at.
Hey, Kevin, we want to take the time to thank you for appearing on the show today, buddy. We enjoyed your contribution and want to thank you for the time.
Absolutely, Kevin. It's always a pleasure being here. I love sports. That's what I talk about. I love my Texas teams. And, I just want to let you know, Kevin, you do a phenomenal job. You do a great job. Keep it up. Keep doing great work. And I'm proud of you as well, brother.
Thanks, Kevin. Have a great day, and bye for now, bud.
All right, dude. Take care, brother.